Welcome back to Killer Fun, where we explore the intersection of crime and entertainment every other week. I'm Christy.
And I'm Jackie.
And today we are talking about The Gentleman, Season 1, Episode 1, Refined Aggression. The spare gets an unexpected windfall and a ton of trouble.
This is so funny. This show is so funny.
I mean, it is. It is funny.
Yeah.
It's funny and dramatic and exciting.
Yep.
And there's a lot of different things. Before we get to that, though.
Yes.
There were some things that you wanted to know about that I didn't even think to ask the questions
from
about.
our previous episode.
That's right. From
Yes.
the program Cons, Cults, and Kidnapping.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. We were talking about the homeschool program that they used.
Right.
Well, I say
yes.
homeschool because I know for sure now
Yes.
that it's a homeschool. But at the time, I was like, what program are they using? Because it sounded very similar to some homeschool programs that are actually still operating today. And so I went searching and I was able to find that, yes, it was a product made by Alpha Omega Productions or Publications, and that it was used as a group kind of thing. And it's not meant to be computer-based. Like in the show, in the programming like that they gave, like the promos and stuff, and they talked about that it's group-based. It's not. It's not like a computer-based curriculum.
Right.
It's supposed to supplement an entire curriculum. It's like the DVD that goes with the rest of the program.
Right. So I don't know, I've done Bible studies where there's you have the little book and you read the little book and then you watch a little 20 or 30 minute video when you get to the Bible study event that you do weekly or whatever. And so they just didn't give them the book part.
They gave them none of the rest.
Right.
And it was called Switched On Schoolhouse.
Okay.
It is no longer available as of actually sort of recently.
What?
I mean, it's not been that long. There are still people who are looking for it because they started on that. Okay. And they want to finish on it. So now Alpha Omega has a lot of different options. Horizons is the one that looks the most similar.
Okay.
But then you have Abeka, which is another brand of very similar things. They all started early. They all started with this computer-based sort of quiz thing. And it was really, that wasn't the curriculum itself. It was meant to be the grade book almost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not great.
No. Now, a lot more curriculum that's on the computer. Right. But then, this was not supposed to be just administered in a computer lab.
Yeah, don't just go sit in a computer lab. This is supposed to be instruction, and then the computer lab is for the quizzing part.
Right.
Yeah, the testing part.
I can understand why they chose it because it is a quote Christ-centered, Bible-centered, sort of program that is meant to be aligned with those evangelical values that the cult had sort of conscripted for their own use.
Right.
And so how much easier is it to then just kind of put you through the quizzes and make it very binary, very black and white to reinforce those things rather than opening discussion to any sort of nuance.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Any sort of value judgment or recognizing that the school's values were similar, but not really exactly the same. So very interesting.
Yeah. All right. And then you also were going to look up Mitt Romney's response to lawsuits against his Utah finance co-chair, Robert Litchfield?
I did. I wanted to know more about that. So it turns out that Litchfield, when he was arrested, right? Or,
I think there were civil lawsuits against him.
Oh, yes, you're right. So not arrested, but when he was served. When he was served for his lawsuits and when there was other investigations going on, because there were investigations coming for child abuse, child neglect through the program.
Right.
So there were some of that, but the lawsuits that were actually enacted were the civil ones. So when he was served, Mitt Romney's team did refund all of his donations, they put out a statement that was simply that he is no longer part of the campaign. Now, Litchfield's team had put out a statement that said that the Romney campaign had asked them to leave so that they could, quote, focus on their defense and with the hopes that the truth will come out and that their name would be cleared. And then the Mitt Romney campaign said, we didn't say that.
Oh.
And that
okay,
was
good.
the end of that. Like, we didn't say that. Done. And there was no more mention of Litchfield in the Romney campaign ever again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was kind of how that played out. No real good response from the Romney campaign really addressing the situation or addressing the, allegations at the time.
Right. But they did separate from
they
him.
separated immediately.
Okay.
It was
good.
within a few days.
Oh, good. Okay,
So
good.
It wasn't an immediate separation, at least.
I would have liked to have seen a condemnation of, at least the idea that if these allegations are true, that, this is not something that aligns with our values.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have liked to have seen that, but I mean, I guess
I would have liked
politically
to.
an expedient separation and complete separation.
Refunding the donations.
Yeah, that's pretty okay.
At that stage, even that many years ago, which was not that far ago, but it was like exponential as far as how communications is run.
Sure.
I can imagine that for a presidential campaign, it was like, you are like running hard towards the election day. Don't sidetrack. This is one campaign finance person in one state. Goodbye now. And just kind of focus forward in this era of social media where we are a little bit more insistent about needing more from the candidate. And when they have the control now. So back then they would have had to talk to a reporter, or they would have had to put out a press release and hope that the reporting on it would be the entire statement. It would be so easy to pick out the wrong phrase.
Right.
And so I can imagine that's why they're like, say nothing.
Right.
But at least now in social media, if they were to put out a press release, they could actually release it in such a public way that if news tried to twist it, at least they would still have a lot more control over like saying, no, that's not really what we said. So I wonder what would happen now, but
I don't know. How about we not give these kinds of facilities any air?
Yeah. To that,
How about we
exactly.
suffocate them so they don't exist anymore?
Like goodbye. So from that respect, sure. Yep.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Well, thank you very much. Those were questions I didn't even think to ask, which, sometimes happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, because,
Yeah.
we definitely both think of the same thing a lot.
A
lot.
That's
But
right.
you definitely think of things I don't think about a lot. Usually what I'm thinking about is now a rabbit hole about something you've said. And now I'm like, well, now I have more questions.
Yeah. All right. Well, back to the gentleman. Thank you for sticking with us through that quick update.
Yeah, and if you were confused, there's an episode you missed.
That's
so
right.
Go back and watch it.
Go
Or listen to it.
All right. So the cast of The Gentleman. Theo James is Eddie Horniman, the unexpected heir. And I was like, he looks so familiar.
Okay, same. And I didn't look him up.
He was 4 in the Divergent series.
I never watched that.
Oh, it was so good. It's so good, but it's so disappointing because I read. You're going to understand why.
Yeah.
So I read the books.
Okay, yes.
Okay, and then I watched the movies.
Right.
I enjoyed them. They did a justice to the books, I thought.
Okay.
But they split the last book into 2 movies.
Oh, they always do that.
But they didn't make the second movie.
What? They never made the second?
They never made the... And I'd have bet big money that I saw that second movie because the book was well written enough that I kind of like played that in my head.
Yeah. Right. And once the movie comes out, those characters become
right. Yeah.
people.
Who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And he was Cameron Sullivan in the season 2 of The White Lotus. That's probably what you've seen him for. Yep.
Yes. That makes a lot more sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kaya Scodelario is Susie Glass, the pretty crime boss. She was Teresa in the Maze Runner series.
Okay.
So another like dystopian teen.
Yeah,
those were hot for a while.
I also never saw that one.
It wasn't as good as the Divergent series. I don't think. And she was Carol Ann Boone, Ted Bundy's wife, in Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we saw that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we actually covered it in November of 2019.
Yep.
Daniel Ings is Freddie Horniman, and he was Mike Parler in The Crown. And
Oh.
okay. He was in an episode of Black Mirror. I don't remember which one, but I remember seeing him. He was in Sex Education, which I loved and was great. Vinnie Jones is Jeff Seacombe. And he actually has a history with Guy Ritchie. So Guy Ritchie was the director of this series. And he kind of broke onto the scene in the late 90s with Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch.
Okay.
Those were 2 movies, and Vinnie Jones was in both of those movies.
All right.
So he's got a history with Guy Ritchie. Jolie Richardson is Lady Sabrina. She was Julia in Nip Tuck.
Okay.
The girl with the dragon tattoo.
Oh, okay.
And then, of course, my favorite, Giancarlo Esposito is Stanley Johnston. Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Yes.
So I love that he's like this, like, he always seems very pulled together and very proper. And he's almost always a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, even when he's a good guy, he's a bad guy.
Yeah. But somehow in different ways.
Yeah.
I don't see the characters overlapping much, even though they're kind of similar.
They are kind of similar. Like, for example, you know, he was Gustavo Fring in, you know, Breaking Bad and those associated series. And then he was a thief in Kaleidoscope, which was on Netflix.
Okay.
And so he was a villain in that too. But he was very different.
Yeah.
Like it's very interesting.
It is interesting how he's able
he
to.
He always plays a villain, but it's never like he just overlaps and plays the same villain every time.
Nope. Yeah, he's always different. He's always more like complex.
Yeah, and you're always kind of rooting for him too.
I know. Why is that?
I don't know.
I don't know why I like him so much.
I know. I like him so much too. And I was like, it was so awesome and also sad to see him blown up in Breaking Bad.
I know. It was sad. Man, if everybody had just done what he said, everybody would have been fine.
Oh, well.
I did watch a behind the scenes of that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because it was his last day on set. And everybody was like super emotional.
Right.
Like after all that time. That
because he's like a decent human being that people like working with.
So, but the little behind the scenes had about the makeup and about all that. And then he comes onto set with it and is hugging people goodbye. And it's so funny because, you know, but it was good.
All right, recap.
Okay.
As the second son of a duke, Eddie has made his own way in the UK military. He's called home to see his ailing father, and we meet a family that can be best described as erratic. Upon the Duke's death, we learn that the Duke has broken with tradition and does not leave everything to his eldest son, Freddie, but rather to the middle child, Eddie. Eddie learns that there are many secrets, mostly the illegal kind, in his family, and now he gets to try and clean up the messes while also keeping up appearances.
It's good.
Yeah. So there were 80 locations used in the filming of this series.
Okay.
I mean, tons. So many.
So many.
But let's talk about just a few. So the Halstead Manor.
Yeah. Where is this?
Okay. It's not really Halstead Manor. It is Badminton House in Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire. I'm sorry if you're listening in the UK and I'm saying that
Gloucestershire?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gloucestershire.
Let me look at it. Yeah, like Gloucestershire.
I
don't
like
know.
Worcestershire, but
like
Gloucestershire.
But Gloucestershire. Which doesn't make any sense because then in Massachusetts you have like, you know, Dorchester. Right? But then you have Worcester. And they're spelled with one letter apart, basically. I mean, it's like, what? You know, but I get it.
Because English is hard.
English is hard.
Yep. So, Halstead Manor, spoiler alert, doesn't exist because it's Badminton House.
But it is a place.
It is a place.
And that's all I care about.
Okay. So, yes.
Okay.
It is a real place.
It is a real place.
It is where badminton was popularized.
What?
Yes.
Like, that's not just the name?
Like, it's like badminton's named badminton. You know, the Olympic sport and the thing that every, ninth grader plays.
I love badminton.
I think it's fun, too.
I think it's fun. I bought like a kit. Nobody wanted to play with me.
Oh, I'll play with you.
I love that game.
We should put it out and we'll play it together next week.
We should.
That'll be fun. Oh, maybe not next week.
Oh, I don't know when. We'll make it happen.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, this Olympic sport was, now it may have been brought back from India and then kind of popularized, or it may have been invented there. It's really unclear about the history of that. But Daniel Ings said, when it comes to capturing the essence of aristocracy, the locations do a lot of work for you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yes, that's very fair. It's not the first thing that's been filmed there. It's been a location for many a film, television, and still photography. So Bridgerton was filmed there. Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
28 Days Later.
Ooh.
Vogue has done fashion shoots there. I mean, all kinds of cool stuff.
Super cool.
And you can like rent it and like have your wedding there if you're really rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like so rich, like they don't put the prices on the website. But they do have like open days where you can go and like walk on the gardens and stuff.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is nice. Where Eddie meets Stanley Johnston is called the Athenaeum Club.
Okay.
It's in Pall Mall. It was founded in 1824 and it is a private members club. Notable past members include Charles Dickens and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Wow.
There evidently Pall Mall has a number of private members only clubs in that area. They provide things like a dining room and a bar and a billiard room. Well, these things are some of the things we see. Parlors. They're supposed to be luxurious and comfortable, home away from home type things, though they're moving to more of a business networking that used to be kind of frowned upon. Like you made the friendships there and then you did the business outside. Right. Now you kind of do the business there. And the Athenaeum Club was particularly focused on men of science, literature, and art.
Nice.
So like there were other clubs that are, the Travelers Club is people who like to globetrot. All people of means.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So there was a 2019 movie called The Gentleman.
Okay.
Also directed by Guy Ritchie.
Yeah. Okay. I saw that. I saw that was the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, huh? So I'm like, oh, maybe they like, interlock. How are they related? Basically, not as much as you'd think.
Okay.
So Escapist magazine also had the same question. And they said in terms of characters, there's no connection. It's more of an alternative take on what they did in the movie.
Gotcha. Okay.
So the movie had, I didn't write it down.
Like, didn't it have Matthew McConaughey?
Yes. Matthew McConaughey and Charlie Hunnam and Michelle Dockery were all she was in Downton Abbey.
Okay.
She was Lady Mary in Downton Abbey. So it's kind of a different whole take on the thing. And there's, a grow operation in both of them. They're both concealing cannabis on property. That is in both of them. But who owns the grow operation is different. So you can't really relate them.
Okay.
Right? Like you can't make it fit.
Okay.
So basically there's some common elements, but really they're not related to one another. It's like he just wanted to, Guy Ritchie wanted to revisit this. Awesome. Guy Ritchie's one of those people that really all I know he's an accomplished director, but really all I know him from is that he was married to Madonna.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're married to Madonna, that will be a title you carry.
Yeah. So as far as resources go, for the second time in 3 episodes, I don't have any for you. I guess don't do crime.
Don't do crime. Yeah. Okay.
Don't bet money you don't have.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, go to rehab if you have money and a addiction of some kind. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have resources for you. If you're a duke and inherit a beautiful estate, I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to tell you either.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's how it works. Christy wrecks her search history. Hey, an essay. We promise it's nothing more nefarious than a podcast. To find out what's true, some of the psychological motivations behind the characters' actions, and real-life applications that relate to our topic. I have no idea what Christy decided to look up. Could be the same thing that captured my curiosity or something I never thought of.
Is it true?
Is it true?
So we already determined that there isn't a Halstead estate. Is there a Duke of Halstead?
I mean, I feel like maybe.
Okay.
I feel like maybe, or maybe not Halstead, but like, you know, of the same sort of region that they're talking about. There's got to be a Duke.
Oh yeah. Well,
So,
there's
I don't know.
definitely a Duke that
Duke?
lives in Badminton.
Yeah. So I mean,
yes.
like for that, yes, but
Yes.
Halstead,
But
I
there
don't know.
is no Duke of Halstead.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but Halstead is an English name from that general area. There are 30 dukes in the UK. 6 of them are royal dukedoms, and the other 24 are inherited by birth, and it typically passes to the eldest son. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The patriarch has a Latin inscription on his plaque on his coffin. Mm-hmm. Vincit qui se vincit. What does it mean? You're
I did
not
not-
up on your Latin?
Oh, I did not take Latin in high school. I was not one of those people who took the Latin. I took French. So all I heard was wine. That's close enough. So no, I have no idea.
Okay. I didn't know either, even though I did take Latin in high school, but I only took Latin to help me with the SATs.
Oh yeah, a lot of people did.
Yeah. What it means is he conquers who conquers himself,
Okay.
which is a little confusing.
Yeah.
So here is another way to translate that. He who prevails over himself is twice victorious.
Yes. Okay.
I'm like, there we go. Okay. So you overcome your own
Yes.
banana stuff, which is why he left it to Eddie and not Freddie.
Yes. It is exactly why.
Yes. Primogenital is nothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Primogeniture actually is a thing.
Yeah, I love that. He couldn't help but correct him, and I'm like, stop, shh. If somebody is raging like that, just shh. There's no reason to be a grammar police about this. Just let them rage. You're only going to throw fuel on the fire by correcting them and making them look even worse.
Yeah, but it was so funny.
Oh, no, I was totally here for it.
Yeah.
In real life, though.
Yeah. In real life, don't
do it.
But for the show, absolutely.
Hilarious.
Yes. So, yes, it basically does mean that the firstborn child, usually male, or the firstborn male, is going to be the one to inherit the title, property, whatever wealth there is. It does have some roots in biblical passages. Ancient Greeks, Romans, and Egyptians practiced it. It didn't go to England until feudalism in the 11th century. It is still practiced. The best known is the British monarchy.
Right, for sure.
Yep. And the reason that they enacted it was to try and prevent war between rivals. When you have this clear delineation for the line of succession, you can avoid some conflict. Not all conflict, but some.
But yeah, it can mitigate a lot.
Sure.
And that is the hard part. Yes, it kind of does. That's why, people talk about like the class system, like the caste system is terrible. And yet it's weird but when people know what their quote station is and they know what's expected of them, that clarity kind of allows them to feel a little bit more free, because freedom is actually kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
As any American will tell you. Okay. The idea of like, you can be anything. But now there's so much to think about. There's so many choices.
You can be anything, which means if you're not something amazing, you feel like you failed, even though that's not at all the case.
No, but like, yeah, it could just be like very overwhelming. So like in marketing, there's a thing like people with too many choices will make no choice at all.
Uh-huh.
And so you try to limit your choices, right? So that it makes it clear.
Right.
So, that's an adjacent version.
This is why when you have little kids and you want to give them agency over what they wear,
Yes.
you don't tell them to go pick out clothes from their closet.
No.
Especially not if you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry.
Yeah, rookie mistake.
No, you have 2 outfits that are both weather appropriate that you think that they will like. Would you like to wear this one or this one? And they get to pick between the 2.
Yep,
And then
that's
now you put the clothes on. They feel agency. They're so happy. If you send them into their closet, you're going to see them in an hour and they're going to look awful and they're going to be too hot or too cold.
Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare. Or they're going to full on Joey and put on everything.
And then they're going to be too hot.
Yes, and go commando.
Right.
Yeah.
At least they'll have layers of clothes that I can peel off when they... So the Dukeship was said to have a remainder that allowed the title and estate to be passed to Eddie. Do these sorts of exceptions exist?
I mean, I would assume that anything exists if it's codified. So I don't know that that's really a thing, but
Okay.
But I can imagine that yes, like that there is some agency for the Duke, the patriarch at the time themselves to make exceptions as necessary.
Okay, so it's a little more complicated than that.
Okay.
So basically, it has to be approved by the crown, and or it has to be something that was written into the founding documents of whatever title is made. So they're saying that the Dukeship had a remainder written in when it was originally established, allowing this to happen. I couldn't find that there are any Dukeships that have a remainder that they would follow the primogeniture situation, as we've already heard. So there is some precedent in the Baron lines.
Okay.
So where they might have remainders where they could leave with it. So if they die without a male heir,
Right.
they could leave it to a daughter, or it could be split up among daughters, or it could go to a second child if for some reason the first child wasn't able to
to
take it. So it's not without precedent, but I couldn't find that a duke would have had that.
Because that would have been more for the court that was closer in a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah, they didn't want to have the opportunity to have any women come to court without So the Horniman family was said to have had the estate for 600 years. What is the longest an estate has been in a single family in the UK?
Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna go with. I'm thinking you're gonna have to you're gonna have to put in some Jeopardy music.
No, I don't want to pay for that.
I'm gonna go with 800.
Oh, very close. It's 1,000.
Okay,
1,000 years.
All right.
So,
that's funny because I did stop in the 1900s, and we're not in the 1900s. So I would have been even closer
if you'd realized.
If I'd have remembered how old I am.
Yeah, if you've remembered we're not in high school anymore.
Yeah, there's just so many reminders of how old I am. I'm surprised I forgot for a minute.
So there's an estate called Madresfield that is the ancestral seat of the Lygon family. And it was passed down by inheritance for 1,000 years in that particular family.
Wow.
Now, it had an earldom attached to it, and the earldom died out in 1979 because it did not have a remainder, but it stayed in the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah. Freddie was very upset.
As he should be.
Yes, as he should be, because he got himself in quite a pickle with an awful lot of money.
Yes, he did.
And he said that that if he could not pay the money, they were going to cut off one of his favorite parts.
Yes.
Is penile amputation fatal?
I mean, if you don't tend to the wound, I am certain that could be fatal, but I can't imagine that the literal amputation would just be fatal.
Well, we have talked about Lorena and John Wayne Bobbitt on this show before, and he survived it.
He's just fine. Yeah. And honestly, we do have a history of eunuchs.
Yes.
Who some were born that way and some were made to be that way, maybe even by choice.
Yes.
To join that rank.
Right.
So yeah, no, it's not fatal, but for Freddie, I'm sure it is.
Yes. So it depends. If you just ask the question, is it fatal? There's actually too many unknowns.
Right, of course.
As there are with anything. So there are things like if you're taking an anticoagulant.
Oh yeah, that would not be good.
I mean, no, that would muck things up a little bit. Then there are certain foods you can eat that are anticoagulants, like garlic.
No.
Which might make your blood not clot quite as fast. I think you have to eat quite a lot of garlic.
Yeah, yeah.
But, there's...
And he's English, so no trouble.
Okay. And the speed of clotting varies person to person. The penis is a little unique in the way it behaves. So there are arteries that dilate more than arteries elsewhere. So depending on what the state of things, it might bleed a little more.
Mm-hmm. I could see that it would bleed less too because he'd be so frightened.
Sure.
Fight or flight would send the blood elsewhere.
Right. Also,
and
transected arteries tend to spasm and clamp off blood flow when you have this thing. So the loss of a body part, your body will literally, like you just said, divert the blood inward from the extremities so that you won't bleed out.
Right. Like it does respond fairly well, but...
Right. But really... Now, this came from a forum called Shemi, but this particular forum, it's not like Reddit or some of the others, where they actually want some cited sources for their things. So I've felt comfortable taking it from that. And it all makes sense. This is how I would answer it basically. Basically, the longer you go without treating it, the higher your fatality rate is going to be.
Clearly.
Yeah.
And Freddie would not take care of it. He would die of a staph infection.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So, we mentioned Freddie is in quite a lot of debt to a Liverpudlian gang. I love the word Liverpudlian. It made me laugh both times I watched this show. And one consideration to raise money quickly was a painting by Thomas Gainsborough called Cornered Wood.
Yeah, I don't know that exists.
You don't know that it exists?
No, I know nothing about that stuff.
Okay. It actually does exist.
Okay.
Thomas Gainsborough was a famous British painter.
Okay.
He enjoyed doing landscapes.
Okay.
But he made his fame and fortune doing portraits.
Okay.
He was very...
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, very famous. Cornered Wood was actually painted in Sudbury in 1748 when he was a young man. And that selling that particular painting made it so that he could move to London and be able to start doing the portrait paintings. But that particular painting is in the UK's National Gallery collection.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
It's not in a private collection.
Okay, well, how about that?
Would it be worth Cornered Wood over £8 million?
I don't think so, but I am such a bad judge of this art stuff.
Okay.
Because I just don't have any evaluation of that at all.
Yeah, that's fine. I looked it up. I think that 8.4 million is inflated based on how similar works from that artist have sold. Now, the National Gallery, as they should, doesn't publish the value of the work.
No, that makes clearly yes,
that makes sense.
Yes, but there's got to be a Neil Caffrey out there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, white collar reference for those who were like, who the is Neil Caffrey?
Oh my gosh, that was such a good
fantastic show.
Yeah, there was a landscape Gainsborough that sold in February of 2024, so just a few months ago, for 261,000 pounds.
Okay.
Or about 330,000 US dollars.
Not half bad.
Yeah. But not 8 million.
Definitely not.
And there was another one that sold in 2022 for about 189,000 pounds, 240,000 US dollars. It may have been inflated a bit.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Although I could see, if I'm suspending my disbelief, I could be like, well, but if it was in a private collection.
And then it went to auction.
Now we might be, if it went to auction, it might be a different story.
We'll get there in
I
a
don't
minute.
know. Ooh, yay.
Yeah. So Susie Glass says that the UK cannabis market is worth 6 billion pounds.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Okay. It's actually quite a bit less than that.
Oh.
It's a lot, but less than that.
Yeah, that good old American thinking there.
Cannabis.net. Well, the UK is relatively small, especially when compared with the US.
Well, it is, but it's such a freaking powerhouse.
It really is.
I forget.
Yeah. But Cannabis.net values the entirety of the cannabis market in the UK at about 3.3 billion.
Okay.
The illegal portion of that is 2.6 billion pounds.
All right.
The rest of it is from medicinal marijuana avenues. That said, they estimate the global cannabis market at 13 billion, which I thought was interesting.
It's less than I thought.
Yeah, a little less than I thought too.
Yeah, a little less than I thought.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny, when you think about it, you are answering from that American perspective. And, there's a channel I follow or on Instagram, a guy who does like the talking about American stuff. Like, and he's a Brit. And so he did like a stitch with these two girls who were talking, or it may have been one talking to herself. You know how they do that. Anyways, but where it's Americans and how they'll say they're from somewhere, and American is like, is that close to London? And how we tend to do that. And the Brit is like, I'm about to defend Americans and I'm a Brit. He was like, if anywhere we live on our island is close to London, to an American, anywhere, the furthest way, like when they were talking about, he did like the map of what they were talking about, and he was like, that's 2.5 hours away. That's close to an American. That's like a morning commute to so many Americans. He was like, you can drive for 11 hours and not get out of the state of Texas. I just thought it was very funny.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yes. I appreciate the defense because, yes. I mean, to me, that would be like, is it close to London? Everything's close to London.
Yeah, it's all close to London. To be fair, if somebody said, "Oh, are you super close to Austin?" Ish.
Yeah, I'd be like,
yeah, I am, but I'm not going.
Yeah,
like I'm not close enough that I want to go.
I'm not close enough that somebody's like, hey, you want to go to Austin? My answer is usually like, nah. No, not really.
Yeah, not really.
Not that I don't like Austin.
I mean, fine.
It's fine. It's just, the traffic is bad.
Build a train. I'll go
to Austin all the time.
Yep.
So Jimmy, Susie's head grower, says that Frisian duck is a popular marijuana variety.
Again, things I have no clue about.
Just to guess.
Not at all.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you're correct.
It sounds just weird enough to be true.
That's right. It's actually got leaves that are shaped like a duck's footprint.
Oh.
And it's a hybrid of Frisian dew and duck's foot that gives it this particular shape, which makes it good if you're going to grow it outside in a place where...
Because it doesn't look
like a traditional marijuana plant.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And the same with White Widow super cheese. They called it supercharged marijuana.
I don't know. I mean, I know that kind of stuff exists, like that where it's more potent or powerful or whatever, but like super cheese? I don't know. I guess.
That is actually also a thing. Yes. And I was like, supercharged. Does that mean it's got like an additive of some kind? No, it's just an organic hybrid of something called White Widow and cheese.
Okay. I'm amazed how many different...
There's so many varieties.
Of that plant. It's so true.
Yeah. The flowers are said to smell like honey and cheese.
Ew.
Oh, I think that could be like, I think of like a charcuterie plate.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have some like honey and some stinky cheeses and like you might.
Yes, tasting I can see, but the smell?
Oh, yeah, well, you know.
Because just a lot of cheese don't smell good.
This is true.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe it would be something you kind of, it has to grow on you.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, yeah. All right. So as we said, there is no Halstead estate, but there is Badminton estate and is an example of William Kent architecture. Is William Kent real?
I'm going to go with, there's a lot of there. No.
Okay.
I don't think that we're talking about an example.
Okay.
And William Kent sounds adjacent.
I was like, is it Roy? Is he related to Roy Kent?
That's funny.
Because my family just watched. Yeah, we just watched Ted Lasso for the second time, and Roy Kent is a prominent character in that. William Kent was a real English architect. He lived from 1685 to 1748.
Okay.
He was a very popular designer of furniture and a painter, as well as being an architect and a landscape architect.
What's his full name? Does it list his full name?
William Kent. That's
just
all I
William
have.
Kent. Mm-hmm. I don't know why. It sounded familiar.
Kent is a city.
Well, yes, but that's not what I was thinking about.
Oh, okay.
I really was thinking about design.
Oh,
but
okay.
I was like, well, but I must be thinking of a Kent from the mid-century modern era.
Oh, I bet
And I think it just feels like very adjacent. Right. So then I was like, what? And then they were talking about one of his quotes. And I was like, did he say that? I feel like somebody else said that. Or at least somebody said it at the same time or maybe after them and was more popular. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, William Kent did renovate and expand the Badminton estate in 1745.
Oh, hey. So it is an example.
Yes. Now, they did say that the house had been in the family for 600 years. Badminton was built in the early 1600s, making it only a little over 400 years old. But even by the time William Kent got to it, it was a renovation. Mm-hmm. It is an example of his particular aesthetic.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Stanley Johnson has his wine filtered with what looks like a coffee filter.
Oh, yes. I was very intrigued by all of this.
So does this do anything? Should you do it?
No, I think it's about the same thing as hyper-decanting.
I was hoping it was going to be like hyper-decanting,
it felt
honestly.
Yeah.
All right. So Wine Spectator has been asked about this. You can do it. It's not really going to change the flavor of anything any more than regular decanting would.
Okay.
Right? So if there's sediment in the wine, which is dead yeast cells, harmless titrates, and other things that fall out of the wine over time, it typically takes about a decade for that to start to happen.
Okay, well, they were drinking some very old wine.
We're going to get there.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It made me crave it.
Yes. Some sediment can be small enough to pass through a coffee filter or cheesecloth. I'm guessing what they were using was probably finer than your typical coffee filter. You can do that. You don't have to. It won't filter out the sulfites. So if you're sensitive to that, this isn't going to help you. You can do it. It's not really going to change it. But if it's an old bottle of wine that you've decided to open and drink, it may be beneficial.
Maybe. Okay.
Would you like to guess at the value of the Romani Conti wine that Stanley and Eddie drank together?
Was it real?
Yes.
Okay.
That is a real wine.
Okay, I was like, I don't know, maybe that's not real.
Oh, it is a real wine.
How do we guess? In what measurement? Per bottle?
Yes, per bottle.
I'm going to go with 15,000.
Okay, that's a very fair guess.
Oh.
The 2002 Domini Romani Conti Grand Cru, which is the Burgundy that they were drinking, is about a $30,000 bottle of wine.
And that was the 2002?
That was the 2002.
Wow.
So,
oh my gosh.
Eddie sold Stanley cases of the 1982 Romani Conti. Is 20,000 pounds a bottle accurate for that?
I'm going to say it's low.
Okay. That one is actually very accurate.
Oh, okay.
So about 20,000 pounds is really accurate for the 1982 DRC, which is what these wines are called. Then there was the 1945 DRC that seemed to really excite Stanley.
Yes.
About how much do you think those would go
I feel like I'm on the Price is Right. I don't think I would win that game, but I'm going to go with 65,000.
Okay. That is an excellent guess.
Ooh.
There were two in 2018
Okay.
that went up to auction.
Oh my God.
They were expected to go somewhere in the neighborhood of $22,000 to $32,000 each.
Okay.
Okay. They actually sold for $558,000 and $496,000.
What?
20 to 25,000 is your regular price for a Romani Conti. These went for significantly more than that.
This I do not.
Would you like to know why?
God, please let it be for charity.
No, it wasn't for charity. Here's what makes that the 1945 Romani Conti that sold for $585,000 is the most expensive bottle of wine ever sold.
Okay. Well, it ought to be.
Yeah. Here's why. Because that vineyard is in Europe, and it was monumental because 1945 marked the end of World War II. Mm-hmm. The war significantly limited the amount of bottles of wine that they made that year. A typical yield for that vineyard is 5,000 bottles.
Okay.
Okay. In 1945, they made 600.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. It is a overall really excellent wine, very well regarded. It is the jewel in almost every wine collector's collection is a bottle of DRC.
Okay.
Okay. This one, it's not just about the wine in the bottle. It's because it has the story woven into it, that there were so few created. It was the end of the World War II, that it's survived all this time.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, but also.
Right. Whew. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yep. The Romani Conti vineyards are in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites. They're considered a site of importance. The only UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Texas are the San Antonio Missions.
Hey! How about that?
Yeah. All of the sources that we use to inform our discussion here on Killer Fun Podcast can be found on our social media. Join us on Facebook at Killer Fun Podcast, exploring the intersection of crime and entertainment. You can find us on Twitter at Killer Fun Pod, or you can send us an email at killerfunpodcast@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to share a link to whatever information you're looking for. We love to hear from you. You might learn a little something too. Psychology break.
Okay.
All right. Freddie has an entitlement mentality.
You said psychology break, and I thought that's what Freddie had.
Yes, he did. Because he felt like he was entitled.
Well, of course he did.
Of course he did.
I mean,
he thought he
to be fair.
Of course he
yes,
did.
of course he did. But.
Yes, but it definitely did affect his interpersonal relationships. Mm-hmm. Some of the ways that can happen for your more average person is, conflict in the relationship, unhappiness, disappointment, depression. I think we see all of these things happening. if you find yourself feeling entitled to things, there are things you can do to help yourself snap out of it. The golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated. Recognize that not all situations are unfair. Learn from your mistakes. That wasn't something that was Freddie did very well.
No.
And we see that Freddie is deeply unhappy, and this is at least in part because he feels entitled. So Neuroscience News reported about a study that did a review of 170 academic papers, and what they found is a particular process that people go through when they're entitled. First, the entitlement creates a constant vulnerability of unmet expectations. Okay, so you think you're owed this, and when you don't get it, you feel upset about that. These unmet expectations lead to dissatisfaction and volatile emotions.
Yeah, we see that.
We totally see that. And then this emotional distress demands a remedy of some sort. And that kind of leads to the reinforcement of the superiority, which brings us back to the first part of the entitlement. Yes.
Makes sense.
So it tends to be a self-perpetuating cycle, unless you can break it.
Yeah.
I don't think Freddie had a lot of good examples of how to break that entitlement or any reason why he think he should.
Well, no. I mean, for him, it was like, and I don't know. I feel like there's entitlement when you're like the Duke's son.
Yeah.
And then there's like general entitlement.
Right.
Like that feeling. And like, I think he had boredom because he had no responsibilities. And his only responsibility was to have been born first, and it was done. What now?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So like a lot of freedom and boredom, but because the wife, whatever, as far as I've seen in the series, hasn't. I mean, she's entitled, but she's not unhinged.
Right.
And the daughter seems unhinged, or doesn't seem unhinged.
Right.
Like even the mother was like, you need to go back and finish your year at uni. Right. Like, so there's like, and then there's just reasonableness, and they're all very entitled.
Sure.
So, but that particular entitlement he had left him very like
vulnerable,
bored, and yes. So then very vulnerable to attention seeking and thrill seeking
and con men.
And yes, he made himself a target.
He really did,
and he just, bless his heart, he was just so dumb.
That's fair. Entitlement in small doses might not be all bad. So Psychology Today has an article that talks about, the pitfalls of entitlement, but also it can make you very charismatic and have a high self-esteem, which is, great. It might be confused with narcissism. It may be part of narcissism.
They could overlap for sure.
Certainly there's some overlapping, but when you have bits of entitlement, it can create a situational rush that can be actually a good thing and help you find more creative solutions to something. So you feel entitled to something you didn't get. Now you've got to figure out either how to get that thing or how to change the situation so that it's better for whatever goal you're trying to achieve. It can help you find really creative solutions for it. So it's not all bad. Entitled people do have a tendency to not follow instructions well. So, yeah. And, parents are somewhat to blame. And yet, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to squash our kids' dreams and tell them they're unreachable? Or do we encourage them? Because some people make it, you shoot for the moon and you fall among the stars sort of situation.
Yes. Like for that kind of thing, for finding that balance between a good, humility and feeling, having high self-efficacy and self-esteem, like grit, like the whole study of grit and flow. So Angela Duckworth and Michele, I can't pronounce his last name because it's like a lot of letters. And I have seen it written out phonetically, and I still can't freaking figure out how to do it if I'm not really reading it phonetically. But he wrote a book on flow, and then Angela Duckworth wrote the book on grit, and grit handles a lot of, that's what we're looking for.
Okay.
That's that middle ground. And
Right.
so then there's another book called How Children Succeed by Paul Tough. That's funny. Paul Tough. And that he's taking the works of all these people and kind of talking about that particular issue. Exactly.
Cool.
So it's really, really good.
Very interesting.
We'll have to link to it on the socials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Freddie insists that Eddie owes him because Freddie saved Eddie from drowning in a pond when Eddie was 3 years old.
Okay.
Eddie doesn't remember the event, but he remembers being told about it a lot. So why don't we remember much from our first few years of life?
This is basic lifespan right here.
Right.
Some people can remember. Most people have a decent amount of memory dump as you get older.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of called infantile amnesia. It's not kind of called that. It really is called that. Now, our first memories tend to be autobiographical memories. So they're tied to some sort of emotional event. It used to be that they thought that babies couldn't form memories at all, but obviously that's not true because babies do learn. So yes, they do have memory, but a lot of what babies learn is procedural memory for like how to do things and how things work. I do this thing and this thing happens. Autobiographical memories are more about like information and a thing that happens for you. And so you need some language to be able to code those in a way that you can express. And they believe that that's not something that happens until you're about 12 to 18 months old, where you can finally start to have enough or start to learn the language. And then most people don't really have memories until after that. The hippocampus isn't fully formed at that age either. And so that's kind of crucial to it. So it's usually between 2 and 3 years old when people have their first memory. And it, of course, it varies a lot.
Yeah.
And that's a Science Daily article. Basically, they used to believe it was about 3.5. More research from 2021 says actually it's probably closer to 2.5 for a lot of people, but that it varies widely. So if you ask somebody what their earliest memory is, and then you ask them for more details and things, they can start remembering things earlier and earlier.
Yeah. And of course, it's so hard to study this because there's no way to verify where the memory came from. So when you're told the story, then you are influenced to have the memory. And when you are told the story and that happened to you at that certain age, and maybe you have at least like some sort of working memory of the location you were in, you can kind of start to form it as if it really was you forming that memory when really you've just heard the story at such a young age and connected it to emotion. So it's coded. But so you'd have to find somebody who can have an earliest memory where it's not possible for anybody else to have told them it happened, but somebody else would have had to know it happened and never said anything.
That's me.
Okay. Wow.
That's actually me. So
you.
We lived in another country when I was born.
Okay.
We left there when I was 18 months old.
Okay.
And somebody asked me my earliest memory, and I said it was these little floating houses. They were on like a dock, like a narrow dock, and you could walk from little house to little house. And there was like a little path through the house over the water.
Okay.
I remember being afraid I was going to fall in the water.
Okay.
All right. So I told my parents about that, and they were like, they had never told me about it before. I told my parents about it, and they were like, oh, yeah. And they remembered the city where these little floating houses on the dock had been, and that we had gone there.
That's so cool. Yeah.
It was super weird.
That is weird. Yeah. See, you're the golden sample. We need so many more of you to start figuring that out. Yeah.
I mean, and most people don't have that sort of thing. And that was actually the next thing is that, if your early memories may actually be fictional. They're not, it's because you've heard the stories, you've seen the pictures, and then you start to form your own memories. They're not real memories. They're you think they're real. They feel real.
Well, they are real because they were encoded.
Sure.
They just weren't organic.
They may not be accurate.
And they may not be accurate.
But
they might have a piece. Like I have an early memory, but every time I would say something about it, my dad would fill in the pieces.
Okay.
So over time, now my actual memory of this is filled out. Like he painted the rest of the picture.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's not completely a false memory, but what I actually remembered the first time I said anything about it was much, much smaller than that, right? It was much smaller, but then he kind of painted it all out. And so it's still my memory because now I've filled it in and coded it. But, so it's really happened.
Yeah.
So it's, but how many details are wrong now because he's painted it wrong from his own misremembering, et cetera,
right. Memory is such an ephemeral sort of
I mean, it's both better than we think and less reliable than we think, all at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
So.
Real life.
I
wanted to know how much an estate that had been in a family for that long might sell for.
Yeah.
So Adlington Hall in the UK was in the same family for about 700 years. It went on the market in 2022.
Okay.
They asked $30 million for it.
Okay.
It took about a year, but they did get about that much money for it. Yeah. It went to an investor, not a single. Yeah. But that makes sense. I mean, it was huge piece of property, a lot of, buildings and different things that had been there. And of course, there's like towns and stuff that are like associated with this. They technically all belong to the estate.
Yeah.
And so you have like lots of buildings, but there's industry happening there. It's a whole mess. I can't even imagine. So the sister, Charlie, was to get a trust of $1,000 a week until she married a man. And that's actually a really good amount of money. The median annual earnings for full-time employees in the UK in 2023 is about £35,000.
Okay.
So would be making 52.
Yeah.
That's significantly better than like your average worker. In London, it's a little higher. Everywhere else, it's a little lower. London pulls everything up. But that was quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it's good.
Maybe not for how she's used to living.
Right. But she also still has those resources there. So,
right.
That might just be her. That's her like a little account, but also.
Yeah. Also, she can go stay at the beautiful estate.
Yeah.
There were some lost sketches for Gainsborough's Cornered Woods that were found just a few years ago.
Really?
They were mislabeled, according to Smithsonian Magazine, in a royal library. They had been labeled as Edwin Landseer, who was another artist whose best work is Trafalgar Square bronze lions.
Okay.
So if you see something in London, that's probably it. So they were labeled as that, and somebody went looking through it and realized that there was a sketch that resembled Cornered Wood, and that the sketch was put over the painting, and they were like, oh, this is Cornered Wood. So that was an early sketch that he did, and then he went off and painted it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
They found it. That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
And then Tommy Dixon, he wanted his money and a pound of flesh from Freddie, who knew that SOB could take us out on a lighter note. Because he told Freddie it was about 4 minutes of video that he wanted, and he was getting $4 million off of his what he owed. That made him one of the highest paid actors. So I wanted to know what other actors have been paid $1 million a minute for their on-screen time. Julia Roberts.
Now that is so funny you say that.
Oh, is that who you thought of him?
No, because last night Notting Hill was on.
Oh.
And if Notting Hill is on, I must click it.
That's,
I do. I have to watch it until I can't watch it no more. I have to watch it. Yes, I love it.
I love Notting Hill too. It's such a sweet movie.
It's such a great movie.
She was in a movie in 2010 called Valentine's Day. Time magazine called this one of the top 10 worst chick flicks ever. But moviegoers loved it.
Okay.
It made it a $200 million box office hit.
Wow.
Julia Roberts sat for 6 minutes next to Bradley Cooper and was paid $3 million.
Oh.
Like, wait a minute, that's not $1 million a minute. Oh, but her contract included a percentage of the film's gross.
Whoa.
So she actually made $14 million for her 6 minutes of time.
Wow. Wow.
Will Smith in Men in Black 3 made $100 million. The movie clocks in at 106 minutes. So there's probably at least a few minutes. If it wasn't $1 million a minute, it was awfully close.
Yeah.
Johnny Depp.
Oh, wow, yeah.
In Alice in Wonderland, his entire time on screen in that movie was about 7 minutes, which baffles me because I didn't see it. But he was on like all the movie posters and he was only in it for 7 minutes.
Wow. I saw the movie. Yeah, that's right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was not very long. Because the movie was so successful, he made about $68 million.
Wow.
So, yeah. Mark Hamill in The Force Awakens, the Star Wars movie, he was on screen for seconds in at the end of that movie, and he was paid somewhere between $1 and $3 million.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And then George Clooney in Gravity, his screen time was about 18 minutes in that movie, and he made $20 million for those 18 minutes and got a percentage of the profits.
What?
Made another $14 million. This is what they do for big names to have them in their movies. They get a little percentage of.
Well, yeah, the percentage thing. But I'm just still astonished.
So much
at
money.
the actual paycheck for such a small part.
Yeah,
you would think if they're getting the percentage that the actual, write you a check would be far less.
Right? No, but they really want them in the. They're like, I don't care if it's a flop because I already made $20 million. But if it's not a flop, I'm going to make a lot more.
Yeah. I mean, wow.
There we go.
Impressive.
Yep. Next time. So Tom Ripley is not something new on this show. We talked about the 1999 Matt Damon and Jude Law star, The Talented Mr. Ripley, back in the summer of 2021. But there is a new Netflix series that is a far more sinister take on that story. It's an adaptation. Ripley, next time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sounds fun.
Yep. Thank you so much for listening. We know we don't come on the radio, that you choose to listen to us, and we really, really appreciate it. Tell a friend. It's way more fun when you can listen with a friend. And until next time, be safe, be kind, and wash your hands.
Da, 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 da.